Welcome to this episode of Rooted Recovery Stories. My name is Patrick Custer, and I am your host. So happy to be here with each and every one of you today. And my friend, the one and only Chadd Bryant. Chadd with 2 Ds.
Let's go.
Yeah. I'm so excited.
Alrighty.
So excited to be talking to you today. This has been long overdue. And, it was serendipitous, fate, God, a number of things that brought together this interview. Mm-hmm. It was bound and determined to happen. But
we are here.
That's right. We are here. Finally.
Finally.
Usually I give a long or, description of the person I'm interviewing when we open up, mm-hmm. but there's so much about you that I really want to just flush out because it is really, there's so many layers, and we're going to peel that onion today.
Yeah, I'm kind of like Dolly Parton's coat of many colors, except for I'm a man of many colors.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
All stitched together to make up this craziness.
Can I get an amen?
Amen.
All right.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. So where do we start? I mean, other than the beginning, where did this?
This came from.
Yeah.
This came from Curtis Station, Mississippi, which is as small as it sounds. Probably population of 50, 25 is my family. Other 25 is probably my cousins. And
don't cousins count as family?
They do in Mississippi.
Okay.
But sometimes they don't, depending on who you're marrying.
I'm dead.
Sometimes they dismiss that.
Y'all don't know. Half of this episode is going to be some comedy, so you get ready for a little bit of a roller coaster. It's all good.
Ask and
Buckle
you
up.
shall receive. Buckle up.
All right. So we got lots of family going on.
Yeah. So from Curtis Station, Mississippi, I grew up there until I was like 12. My grandmother had a little country grocery store, and all my dad's brothers and sisters, we all lived in trailers around the little country grocery store. So it was my grandmother, and then it was Terry, Perry, Sherry, Jerry, and Diane.
Why did Diane not get?
So Diane was born in England, and then my grandmother married my grandfather in the war, and she came over here, and then when she got to Mississippi, she just made it all rhyme.
Wow.
Just the Aries.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it was awesome.
But poor Diane got left out from the rhyming.
Diane's the queen, though.
Okay.
Diane, she's from England. Hello.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. So did you all take turns working in the store?
I wouldn't say working. My grandmother kind of ran it. I would say we took turns causing a lot of ruckus, me and my cousins, in the store, stealing bubble gum and, just things that kids do growing up in a country grocery store with nothing around to do, so. But it was an awesome way to grow up.
Yeah. So how long were you there for?
So I was there until I was about either 10 or 12. I can't really remember. And then we moved to Batesville, Mississippi, which is also a small town. We got like Super Walmart and a red light, but it's at least bigger than Curtis Station.
Okay, moving up.
And it's close to Oxford, Mississippi, where Ole Miss is. A lot of people know where that is.
So what, you've kind of painted a little bit of a picture of your lots of family / non-family. But what did your family unit look like at this period of your life? Your immediate family. Right.
So my mom and dad. So I'll just give you a little background. My mom and dad got married at 15, had me at 17. And then 7 years later had my brother. And then shortly after they had my brother, they divorced. So that was kind of wild. And then there was a time where they were separated and they both got remarried. And they're both still married to the people that they married after they divorced. And wow. I would say they're both friends now. Maybe not in the beginning, but they are now. So it was cool. But I grew up with my cousins out in Curtis Station. My cousin is a month younger than me, and then my cousin Angelina is a couple years older than me. But we kind of grew up also like siblings.
Yeah.
Because we were just all right there together.
What was like when you think back around that period of your life? Like, what are your some like top fond memories that you think of that just made life happy for you?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think that, growing up in the middle of nowhere, but around all your family that are like so close, grew up, playing cards at night, playing games with my family. And then during the day, we didn't have a lot of money, but we had like little 3-wheelers and 4-wheelers and stuff. And so we would ride those all around. And again, we were in the middle of nowhere. So you really could just, it was like the Dukes of Hazzard, but it was amazing, basically. And with people that you love.
Yeah, that sounds
so
like
much.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, it was really cool.
So I know that it wasn't all fun.
Right.
Like many of our lives.
Yeah.
What was, kind of take us there for,
Okay.
because there's some darkness, I know.
Yeah.
And, where did that start for you? I feel like everybody can pinpoint their earliest memory of something not good happening in their life.
Yeah. I think that for me, obviously my parents' divorce was the beginning of what for me felt like kind of a perfect little family unit and everybody around us. And so from there, it kind of just, because I'm a fixer. I'm just a fixer and I'm a helper. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to be able to fix things, but I was so young, I didn't know how to. So it was basically the struggle of my parents being divorced and then me having to go back and forth. And so, I'd be at my mom's during the week and I got to see my dad every other weekend, even though being from a small town, once they divorced, and we had moved closer to Batesville, my grandmother was 4 houses down from where my mom and I lived, my dad's mom, so there were some nights where I would sneak out the window and run up to my grandmother's house and be crying and upset and stuff. There were just, like that's tough. Divorce is tough when, that happens. And I didn't understand a lot of it, but, so I guess that's probably my first memory of my life kind of taking a darker turn, but in the same instance, I always knew I was different. I just didn't know that me being gay was the thing that was different. And because as a kid, you don't really think sexual type stuff. Not that it's all sexual, but I knew that I didn't have an interest in girls. I had them in boys. And I knew in my brain growing up Southern Baptist in Mississippi that wasn't accurate. So I would kind of tuck that away.
Yeah.
But I think me, Aaron and them know me. I'm a big personality. I try to be really great to people, and that's just, I kind of am, even though I have siblings and even though I have cousins, I think everybody in my family would say I'm kind of the life of the party, or the, I was just the lively one. That's just who I was, but also it brought a lot of joy. But behind that joy, I think a lot of people who have a lot of joy have a lot of pain. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff tucked away that we hide. So, hiding who I was somewhat traumatic, but then so I found myself in my teens and in my early 20s getting in a lot of trouble as far as fighting people and getting in fights with people, but I never really fought anybody over myself. I always got in fights with people over other people who couldn't defend themselves.
Do you think that now, knowing you, I can definitely tell that you are definitely a person that's rooted and grounded in justice for sure, and so that makes sense. But not everybody that is, that comes from their personality makeup, involves that, is just ready to go fight somebody for injustice. So would you say that? that hard exterior was something that were you compensating for what you felt like you needed to present a persona that was a shell of protection for you? Yeah.
I think that me, in a way, defending everybody else was a distraction for me having to defend myself in a way. But to be quite honest, and this still stands true today, people can say whatever they want about me. I normally don't care. And I always go by the phrase and saying what people think about me is none of my business, because it's what you think about yourself. But even to this day, if right this second, if somebody were to probably pick on you or pick on Aaron or pick on somebody that I care about, you would I'm the nicest person you'll ever meet, but I'm somebody that you do not want to back into a corner.
I believe that.
Because I will bring out Cagney and Lacey and we will go to town. I try not to fight people these days because I am older, and I still would probably win, but I would have to have a lot of Neosporin and Bengay and insures like the next day to recover. But and also, my dad was on the sheriff's department back when I was growing up, and this is probably not fair, but the fights that I would get in or the times that I would go to jail, I have been to jail, but that's not who I am anymore. But my dad was there, so
hey, lots of us. I admit publicly as well, right? Like,
yeah, I had some get out of jail free cards back home. But, and not that that's an excuse, and not that I would do that here if I knew somebody that worked in a jail. But I just think that me being that aggressive back then was me being gay and not being open about it. So there were a lot of feelings that were tucked away that I didn't know how to express. But also that is who I am to the core, is to fight for other people. Especially people. It was always people who would pick on somebody that they were bigger and this person was smaller, or just somebody who couldn't really defend themselves.
What period of time?
I hate a bully. I hate a damn bully. Yeah.
We could go down a rabbit hole of like just the narrative around bullies and why they are the way they are and all that.
Yeah.
But I digress. So, but what age would you say, age range we're talking about, where you started getting into fights and what we're talking about?
Oh, I would probably say like 13, 14 on up. You know, and then it led into other fights with even some adults later on, you know?
Yeah. So because I know this, I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit. When your parents got divorced, you talk about a lot how you've been in therapy your whole life.
I have been in therapy my whole life. Yes. Feels like it.
And it was when they got divorced that began for you, right?
Yeah.
What was your experience? I mean, that was a long time ago. I'm just kidding.
It was a long time ago. It was a long time ago.
But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of therapy. I'm just curious because not a lot of people can say, you know, I've been consistent with therapy through my life, especially since childhood. And so, you know, what kind of spurred that on? A lot of people get divorced and don't get a therapist for their kid. Like, so why did they choose to do that? And what was your experience like going through therapy at that time?
Well, I'll tell you why they started therapy for me is because I was scary. I know it doesn't seem like I'm scary, but it was scary back then. I would really tear some stuff up and really did not have my emotions in control as far as aggression. So I think they were just, A, I was super emotional, and B, I would tear things up. Yeah, I got mad at my stepdad one time and wanted to fight him. So I proceeded, while he watched out the window, to destroy his brand new dually pickup truck, busting out all the windows, flattened all the tires. Can you cuss on here?
Well, it's a little late.
But yes, bust out the windows, flatten the tires, wrote "fuck you" down both sides of his truck. With
Sorry, wait, can we just take a second to laugh about all the cuss words Chadd said?
Have I been saying this whole time? Have I been cussing this whole time?
I mean, at least a few times.
Oh my God. Well, the F word is the big one. But,
right. It's fine. We're real. We're real on the show. So.
I just didn't know the audience necessarily. So I was, you know, like, that's just one thing that I did, which I'm not proud of. And I'm not going to get into why I did it. But you know, like, I probably should not have done that, but I did. So there was a lot of aggression that I had to be in therapy because, they were afraid for me, and I was kind of afraid for myself. So I was open to going. But I did have a therapist at one point give me horrific advice the whole time. And I knew that he was really in my corner because my mom and dad divorced. My dad married my stepmom. She's been awesome. My mom married a man who, to this day, we don't get along.
They're still married?
They're still married. And, I don't even know how to say this. Like, we just didn't get along. And me and my mom have always been really close. And I think that my stepdad was really threatened by my relationship with her. But now, let me just be very clear. Lots of years of therapy, lots of years of me going through things where in that moment, I felt like I was trying to save my mom. I felt like I didn't want her to be with him. I felt like there was just a lot of, but you really, at some point, have to realize you can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. And if someone wants to do something, they're going to have to do it. So I had to make peace with it, and I had to forgive him and even my mom, and then just move on. And now when I'm around him, we may say, hey, but we don't talk and stuff. And I wouldn't mind if he asked me how I was doing. I will have a conversation with him, and I told my mom that. But if he says anything, I have a hot button. If you going to come to me and get on to me about something or say something crazy, then you're probably going to see me show out. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
I know it's a lot.
It is a lot. But I mean, family's a lot. And
family is a lot.
I think so many of us who, the families that look perfect are the ones that have so much underneath that that tend to be even the craziest. We've all got so much going on, and so I kind of want to dive a little deeper into what forgiveness, what the path to forgiveness was for you, right? Like it's easy to say, but my gosh, when you're talking about forgiving somebody close to you, especially a family member, I think there are different types of forgiveness and different like forgiveness with boundaries, right?
Yes. Totally.
And so kind of what was your journey of navigating that?
It was a long one. It was a really long one, and it was a really hard one, and it felt like a really drawn out one. But I think that I was standing my ground, and he obviously wasn't going to change, and it probably didn't come across this way to my mom, but I was really being a cheerleader for her. Like I wanted her to be happy, and it felt like she wasn't, and I wanted her to be okay, and it felt like she wasn't. But in the whole means of it, I really wasn't okay.
This podcast is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health. If you or a loved one are struggling with trauma, addiction, or mental health, we are ready to answer your questions and help you take that next step. Call our admissions center at 888-648-4098 or visit us online at www.promises.com. Our team is ready and waiting to answer the call for help.
I had to come to terms with, and the last time I ever got into it with him, which was a while ago, he said something weird about my dad, and I told him I'd cut his tongue out of his mouth, just shit like that. And, just basic, everyday conversations.
Okay. Yeah.
And so then I left, and then that's when my mom really called me and said, listen, I am doing the best I can, and I love you, but I needed her to say that to me. And so once she said that, I knew I had to forgive him, even if he's never said he was sorry, for her sake and really for my sake. And once I was able to do that, if you don't forgive somebody that causes you pain, and in a way, he was winning by just controlling how much I disliked him and how much I just wanted, I don't even know, him to suffer or something because of how I felt like we had gone through stuff. But doing that is like drinking poison and hoping somebody else dies.
Amen.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
So I really had to let it go. And when I did that, now he doesn't bother me at all. And, my mom's good. My niece and nephews are good. My brother's good. And it just is what it is. And everybody goes through stuff like this. And everybody has their own crap. And a lot of people talk about it and a lot of people don't. I'm more of an open book. So people normally know my life. They know my story. And I don't mind talking about it because most of the time it will help somebody else to feel comfortable talking about their crap.
We talk a lot about on this show, connecting through brokenness. There's so much, we see in social media in the world and what have you. There's so much perfection that's portrayed and whatnot. But one of the most beautiful things that we do here, and I love to see in everyday life, is just that when and where we can, and you do this so beautifully, and we've talked about it so many times, is just like the broken pieces, the just being so vulnerable and showing up in relationship is what allows us to connect fully and wholeheartedly and make meaningful connections and whatnot. Has that been something that you've embraced? Like, were you always open? Like, have you always been an open book?
I've always been an open book.
Yeah, there wasn't a pivotal change where...
Right, like Instagram, Facebook. I mean, people would even tell me, like, Chadd, why did you post that? Just about my toe being knocked off sideways, or my stuff wasn't all just like everything's great like everybody's highlight reel. Mine was the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know what I mean? Like, if anybody needed to know how I was feeling, you just could go look at my social media, or ask me. I've always been, in my mind, honesty is the best policy. We're all doing the best that we can. Every single human being is doing the best they can. Might not be the best that I think somebody can do, but it doesn't matter because it's the best that they think they can do.
Yeah.
So I have always been a very honest, maybe probably too much, honest and an open book. That's just how I live my life.
Okay. So speaking about honesty, when did you get honest with yourself about your sexuality?
Wow. So I guess I got honest. I don't know if I got really honest, but I was, in college. I was 19. I had a boyfriend and a girlfriend in high school my senior year. And obviously my boyfriend, nobody knew about, but when I went to college, that's when it really kind of, I was on the rodeo team at Northwest Mississippi Community College. And I was partying and I was really kind of being destructive. You know what I mean? Because but I finally came to terms that I had to say something. And I kind of now wish I would have actually face to face met with my mom, but I couldn't. I couldn't bear the look of her being either disappointed or angry. Yeah. So I wrote a letter and ran across the railroad tracks to my friend Sherry's house. And so I kind of waited, and
I'm watching the second season of Bridgerton right now, where Lady Whistledown. Have you watched Bridgerton?
I've seen the first season.
Okay, well, there's this whole gossip columnist, from back in the period, right? And she writes her. This is what I'm thinking about, because she writes her gossip column and has the local dress shop lady sew it up in a like silk garment and have it delivered to the garment delivered to the print shop. And I'm just like thinking about you being like doing this, like,
here you go. And then like
hiding it, like, Jesus, it's not for me.
That's exactly how it went down. And then guess where else I went? To therapy. A lot of therapy to change who I was, or to, and listen, my mom really did want to help me. And when I came out, I didn't come out and said, I'm gay. I said, hey, I have these feelings and I don't want them and I don't know how to get rid of them. That was kind of like how I came out. Was that
true, or did that feel like the safer thing to say?
No, I really did feel like I felt that way because I did grow up religious, and I did grow up in church. And my grandmother, my dad's mom, and my mom's mom, but my dad's mom was very religious, but she actually, and that's for another time, me and her connected spiritually even more when I came out and I was gay, because she was the one that was like, you should just be yourself, be happy. She understood it. She really understood the Bible. There's a lot of people that just don't understand that you can be Christian and be gay, because God created you that way, and he loves you and he doesn't care. And people will fight with me, but do not come from me. The thing about it is I went to a lot of therapy, and we actually went to a Christian counselor in Memphis. And I remember my mom would go in and she would say, hey, my son has a problem. He thinks he's gay, you know, da 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 da. And the Christian counselor actually looked at my mom and said, your son doesn't have the problem, you do. He's is who he's supposed to be. And really from that moment forward, my mom really kind of took a stance for me, and it changed how she thought. And she really, from that moment forward, tried to understand it. My dad was okay with it from the minute that I came out, but he would cry. Like, my dad's the biggest redneck, and his nickname is Barbed Wire because he's tough as barbed wire.
Wow.
Back in my hometown, he is a redneck. But when it came to his kids, he's like butter. Like, he don't care. I'm 46. He still kisses me on my forehead and stuff. Texts me every morning, every night that he loves me. He's proud of me. But my dad was really just upset. All he did was cry. Every time I was around, he was crying about it. And I'd be like, Dad, why are you so sad all the time? And he's like, I just don't want you to die. Because back then, this was in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, you're going to get AIDS and you're going to die. And I was like, listen, AIDS is preventable. And if I die before you do, it will be because of something I couldn't prevent, like AIDS not AIDS, a car wreck or cancer or something that I didn't see coming.
Yep.
And once I said that, he was like, listen, if that you can promise me that, I just want you to be happy and I just want you to be healthy. And my mom, once she heard that from the counselor, she felt the same way. And I couldn't be any closer with my mom and my dad today. But it was a journey to get there.
You said that so perfectly, like outlining everything. You know, one of the reasons I want to go back to why I asked you that the way I did about, you know, when you said that you had feelings, but you were like, you didn't want them, basically, right?
Totally.
Like, you wanted to try and fix.
I didn't think I was supposed to have those feelings.
Right.
I was taught not to have those feelings.
So the reason I asked that to you in that way is because I think so many of us, myself included, you know, we've talked about this before. That was the same case in my story, and I think it's weird for me now. I think this day and age, my gosh, before this last year, you know, we had made so much progress and what have you under the rainbow umbrella, and I think that I was so oblivious. It was hard for me to understand when I would see some people that had support systems that were very open to, I mean, non-judgmental and definitely supportive of gay people. You know, that their support, they were still had a hard time coming out. Yeah. Right. And I knew that they were still in the closet. And so I ask you that to say, because I know that there are still people out there that, for whatever reason, for them, they don't have safety because a message has been ingrained in their narrative of how the path to self-actualization for life, meaning how we, and I'm saying, like, what I mean in this, not to be condescending to explain this word, but like what I mean by that is, right, like, to achieve what we're supposed to be doing in life and fulfill that story appropriately can only happen within these confines. Right. And whether it is explicitly said, you know, or it's kind of undercover signals, you know, that have been given. So very many of us start off by, you know, our jumping off point in coming out of the closet is exactly how you described it. Right. And, you know, maybe that's just what it needs to be for some people. Yeah. But, you know, I ended up, I dated because of that same very thing. I dated a girl for I was not attracted to females. Right. Can we just I'll clear that up. Yeah. I dated a female for 3 years. Yeah. Right. Like, I mean, we probably would have gotten married if God hadn't intervened, you know, and I do believe it was a higher power that intervened to make that not happen. So, you know, I just like, I think that that's so important to really, talk about, you know, the path with which we navigate the coming out process to ourselves
Right.
and then to others, and what it looks like from our support system side of things. I will say how, because I work in the behavioral health space, I know a lot of Christian counselors that are wonderful and supportive of the LGBTQ community.
Nice.
I know
Good to
many
know.
of them that would not have the same reaction that yours did to your mom. And I think it's so beautiful that was the, what happened, because clearly that was what changed.
It needed to happen.
Yeah.
And I think too, we grow up with our parents, and our parents grow up with their parents.
Mm-hmm.
So there's sometimes, like, I had an ex, and I'm not going to say his name. It was my very first boyfriend. And we were together for like 6 years. But his dad was a chaplain in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And his mom was a school teacher. But his mom grew up silver spoon, wealthy. And his dad grew up poor, but like chaplain in the military, but did well for himself now. And his dad was more okay with him being gay than his mom was, because his dad really was so book smart and really read stuff. And he knew, because he really understood the Bible, there'd be no way for God to really want to judge his son. And he just wanted him to be happy. The mom cared more because of how people would think rather than how her son would actually feel.
Yeah.
So she would say stuff to him like, I'm going to treat you like a child with a mental illness because that's what you have. Just really weird, hurtful things. Whew. And sometimes you have to teach your parents how to treat you, even though they're your parents. But it's hard because sometimes people feel like, well, if my parents aren't right, then everything I've been taught my whole life is a lie. And that's not really accurate. It's just sometimes people don't know better.
So as it relates to that, for me, when I took my first drink of alcohol when I was like 19 or 20, I felt my first sense of real peace and comfort. I use the phrase from the Bible, a peace that passes all understanding. I thought that I had felt peace from God, and I had to a certain extent growing up,
Right.
But from the anxieties that I experienced, there was nothing like that first night where I drank alcohol. And, I had always had this perception that was given from my family. And there's a lot in my story about, all of that, like the bloodline of alcoholism and what have you. They rightly so. We were a anti-alcohol family because of, some history there.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't educated. It was alcohol is bad, 100% bad, all those things. And it will,
wasn't the reasoning behind it. It wasn't the...
Right. I wasn't. There was no reasoning. Well, the reasoning was, that I understood was that you'll go crazy. You'll lose your mind. You'll become addicted immediately. You'll want more. So I thought that if I drank, all those things would happen at once. So when I take my first drink, which I ended up having 3 beers that night. I felt peaceful. Calm came over me, a peace that I had never experienced before.
Right.
I didn't want to have more and couldn't stop. I didn't feel like I was going crazy. As a matter of fact, I felt so calm and clear. I mean, like I felt clear-headed, I didn't feel, discombobulated. So all of my notions about alcohol consumption were completely opposite from what I felt that first night. And that's what launched me into a full-blown assault on my worldview that I had, gained from or inherited from my parents and my family. And so I think, everybody goes through a different degree of either we all inherit a worldview from our parents, whether or not we end up challenging it at a certain point and to certain degrees depends on, what level of things that we experience.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting and so accurate, and the thing about it is it's okay to challenge. I think we think that our parents and our family are off limits, but they're just people. We put parents and stuff on pedestals of these like not godly like figures, because that would be, wrong, Christian like, but whatever. But, they're just people, just like if I had a kid, you know what I mean? So I had to really come to terms with like, it's okay to speak to your parents in a respectful manner to try to get on the same page. And I think that you should go for anybody in their life, whether it's a relative, whether it's a friend, whether it's a partner, whatever. If somebody's not treating you respectfully and the way that you deserve to be treated as a human being, it is okay to set boundaries and not be around that person until they can realize how they are treating you or you want them to treat you. Because again, I think people don't know any better. And once you teach them and somebody knows better, then they have to do better.
Right. Well, and then you have a bar to hold them accountable. I love the quote from Maya Angelou that I think she was the first one I know of that said it. But, that we're constantly teaching those around us how to treat us.
Yes. 100%.
And so either by enforcing that something's okay or saying that what they're doing is not okay.
Right.
But by not saying something's not okay, like a bad behavior that they're doing is not okay with you.
Right.
Silence is saying that you are okay with it.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that goes hand in hand with, for learning that lesson. I think a lot of us, it's a good way into adulthood. And sometimes it's therapy before we realize that and start embracing it in our lives. Then let alone once we get to this place where, and I love asking people this question, really anybody I interview, because it's just, it's such a unique for everybody and so pivotal. When was that point where you realized, because I know for me, it was like my early 30s where I really started to come into the reality that my parents weren't, you talked about having them on a pedestal. Nobody is, but there's this, and we grow up talking about nobody's perfect. Everybody says whatever, but we have this thing in the back of our minds
that you think they are.
Yes.
They're
our parents,
just a different
person. You remember when we were kids and you get in arguments with other kids about whatever the case was. Right. And you'd be like, no, my mom said this or my dad said this. Right. And it was because their word was Bible.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
And to believe any differently would to be believing everything was a lie.
Yep. And so what age was that for you that kind of changed?
I think for me, when I first realized that your parents aren't perfect people and that really you're just not perfect either. In your 20s, I feel like you live in your teens and your 20s, you're kind of living for and impressing everybody else. And then when you get to be 30, you start to kind of live for yourself and realize kind of what you'll put up with and what you want. So I put up with a lot of shit in my 20s, but stuff that I would never put up with in my 30s. And I put up with stuff in my 30s that I would never put up with now. But I think it was in my 30s when I came to realize that my parents are just people and that regardless of who they are in my life, if they don't treat me with respect and the love that I give to them, then they don't deserve a place at my table. And me and my mom had such a genuine bond. We still do, but it got broken a little bit during the divorce and during her and my stepdad, their relationship and stuff, and me kind of fighting back and forth and all that stuff. And some of that was on me. Some of it was on him, some of it was on me. So I'm not like placing all the blame on him. But then once me and my mom didn't have a relationship, but once we came back to the table, me and her probably have more of a genuine, honest, open relationship than I have with anybody else in my life. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it can come full circle and come back around. You just have to figure out how to get there. And if it's worth getting there.
Right. And not everybody can get, it takes two.
It takes two. Yeah.
Yeah. Willing to do the work. And, but I think that like the base of what you're talking about is that, we get to adulthood and you realize that you're moving on from the relationship of have to, because, as kids and adolescents and into our 20s, we're kind of still carrying over that relationship of the have to, like it's your mom, like you,
right.
and then it becomes choice. And I think a lot of times we don't realize it's choice.
Yeah.
And we're still playing by the old rules of whatever generational stuff our
That we
family
have.
system is made up of. And so because of the work that you did, and so many of us get to do when we choose to, and we work through it, it opens the door for authenticity on both ends.
Yeah.
But that can't happen until...
No. And I think that I'm going to say this, you know, I'm a hairstylist, I'm a realtor, I work on cars and motorcycles, I do all this weird stuff. But I've been in therapy my whole life, and sometimes I'll sit in my salon chair and somebody next to me that's in somebody else's chair will say something, and I'll give them advice if they're not getting along with their dad, or just really weird things. And I did that one time, and a lady in another chair said, "Hey, I have a question." And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" And she goes, "Have you been in therapy a lot?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, like, "I'm a clinical psychologist, and you said stuff to that lady that I would say to my patient, and some things that I didn't even know." And the thing about it is this, because I am an honest and open person, like I said, and I've been that way my whole life, I was that way in therapy, and I was there, and I took it serious, and I wanted to be better. So all the therapy that I was in, I learned a lot, and I implemented it, and I made the changes necessary. So there's a lot of people that go to therapy and they will manipulate the therapist to be on their side rather than being honest.
Yep.
So I think it comes with being honest with yourself first and make the changes that you need to make, and then you can help other people to make the changes they need to make to be a part of your life.
Ooh. Preach.
But you got to be honest with yourself first.
That's some goodness right there.
Yeah.
And truth.
Yeah.
Really is. And, you know, a lot of what you're talking about is, you know, this phrase that I think has come on the scene that we're hearing a lot more about is emotional intelligence. And I think there's a lot of debate surrounding whether or not, you know, chicken or the egg, is it nature versus nurture? Are you born with, you know, a certain capacity for emotional intelligence, or can you work on it? And I don't think anybody really knows. I kind of believe that it's probably somewhere in the middle. There's a lot of work that we can do to develop that and work that muscle. And so you definitely are a great example of that. And then, you know, when we have, it's like people are drawn to it for sure. So talking about people being drawn to that, people are so drawn to you. We've talked about, you know, that I wanted to kind of paint a picture. I think I was telling you last night, I'm such a sucker for metaphor. You know, I've heard the phrase before, you know, about somebody that's super exuberant and has a lot of energy and what have you. And they talk, they're like, oh, they're the kind of person they walk into the room, they suck all the air out of the room.
Right. And
as we sat down and we started talking today, I was like, you know, I would never use that to describe you. You are the type of person that you walk into the room and you infuse it with oxygen to help other people breathe.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And
I really appreciate that.
I just, you know, I think that there's a difference, you know, it can be probably like so many of us that are like our strongest asset can also be our Achilles heel.
Yeah.
And because you're so healthy and have done so much work on yourself, it gets to be a gift to other people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has that in them. It's just being okay, truly okay with who you are. Because I think that's really just what it is. It's not that I'm different than anybody else. It's that I've done the work and I'm very confident and happy with who I am. So you exude what you are.
Yeah.
To a certain degree. You know what I mean?
Yes. And it creates a safe space for those around you to do
and they
the
feel
same.
Comfortable.
Yeah.
Like I did an open house recently, and it was a busy open house. And at the end, it actually happened to be these two retired realtors. And when they were leaving, they said, we're actually retired realtors and we were just checking things out. And so I like to know. I'm like, well, me showing you this house, how did you feel like I did? And they were like, when we came in, you could tell you love what you were doing, and you could tell that you were very personable. You made us feel very comfortable. But that comes from, I've not always been that way. Maybe I have. I don't know. But I just think that everybody has it in them. You just have to love yourself enough to just be comfortable with who you are and everything that you are, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that capability is there. It's just that you got to put in the work.
You got to find it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So talking about the work, you have quite a following of people who are Chadd fans for many different reasons.
Right.
In Nashville and wherever, actually, I don't know where they're all from, but I kind of want to go through and talk about your career, what you've done for work and in the public eye. Why do people know you and why might people recognize you from stuff you've done?
Different things.
Yeah.
Okay. So I did lots of jobs growing up, but I became a hairstylist. My grandmother was a hairstylist, so I grew up in her hair salon. So the things that I do the most, hair and now real estate, I grew up at my grandmother's salon and I grew up building houses with my grandfather. So things that I really love doing with people that I love became some of my biggest passions because it brought me back around to that. I wasn't really that book smart in school. I still can't really read a book and remember everything. So I think that I followed kind of the passions that I grew up doing, and then it led me to Nashville. It was a whole God situation of how I got here, and so I got here, and then right when I showed up, my boss, when I was doing hair, he said, "Hey, listen, you got a great personality, but you really don't know what you're doing." So he sent me to Paris, France. I trained for 2 weeks. I trained in London, and he paid for everything. He invested in me because of an investment in his salon. And so that kind of thing projected my life. Projected? Was the trajectory? Trajectory? Did I say that? Put me on the trajectory for success. And in that path, I met a lot of people because I got voted best men's hairstylist in Nashville. And from there were celebrities that were here, country music people on TV that found me. And so, there's one celebrity that knows another celebrity. Oh, you got to see so-and-so. So it was just kind of like a trickle effect of me meeting one person. And then it just kind of me being projected into those different types of situations, and the same with real estate. So I've been super lucky and super blessed. Most of it has come from my hair, the hair world, where I do lots of cool people.
I'm sorry to laugh because for a second you paused and you said most of it comes from my hair and
my hair that I don't have. My hair world. The hair world has really been great to me. So I'm super grateful for that aspect of my life. It introduced me to a lot of really cool people. But you want to know something? And I'll say this again. There's been a couple people that I've worked on that have asked me to work on their hair again, and I never did because they did not know how to treat people. So sometimes all my people that I'm friends with, the Chrisleys, anybody really, when some of my friends or other people meet them, they're like, "Oh my gosh, they're the nicest people." And I'm like, "Yeah, they're nice." And they're like, they just, I guess, didn't know what to expect. And I tell them, I'm like, I don't care who anybody really is or who, what they do. If they're famous and they're assholes, I'm not going to hang out with them. If they're not famous and they're assholes, I'm not going to hang out with them. I don't care who you are. If you're a good person and you're good to me, then I'll be good to you.
Yeah.
And if you invest time and energy into me, I'll invest time and energy into you. And that's just how it is. So everybody that I have had the pleasure to work with and I continue to work with and have become my friends, and some even more like my family, those people are really just good people, and they've been really good to me. So I return the favor.
Yeah. It's a good stance on humanity, I think.
Yeah.
A good outlook. I have to ask at this point in time, I kind of referenced it earlier, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on the state of our country and as it relates to, I don't want to go like deep into politics, but
we don't have to, but I got a great answer for this.
You know where I'm going?
I already know.
All the things that are, we are at this point as gay men.
Right.
It's weird because I feel like we're kind of positioned in a unique place where it's like, We have all these other people under the umbrella right now that we're needing to be the allies and fight for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that here's what has happened. And I was telling somebody this the other day, and I don't care about politics one way or another. And I think that, how I vote and how I feel, again, is really not anybody's business, because I'm American and I can vote however I want to. Mm-hmm. And you should be able to vote however you want to. But nowadays, too many people talk about it. Mm-hmm. And even politicians, back in the day when I was growing up, I remember people in the House and the Senate, Republicans and Democrats, fighting like hell. But then you'd see them out to lunch together. Yeah. Or whatever, because they truly were doing a job for the people. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, politics on both sides have become more about greed and success and power over the people. Yeah. And nobody's really doing it for the people anymore. They're doing it for, all these people on the sides, all these people that are paying them, to say and do however they do. And I told my dad the other day, because we were talking about politics, and we were having a discussion, and that's what I don't think anybody can have anymore. You can have a disagreement and a discussion with people and still be friends and respect somebody's opinion. And I just told my dad, I said, listen, that's fine if that's who you want to vote for, but don't listen to what they say publicly. Look at how they vote, because you can look up and see how people vote on paper. Right. Because there are a lot of politicians on both sides that say they're going to be for these people or they're going to do this. And then when they go behind the scenes and vote, they vote completely differently. Yeah. So I just feel like we're in such a divide, and nobody on either side is trying to bring us together. Yeah. They're just wanting to be right and a wrong. And that's not how America is. That's how I feel. We need to politics. Well, and we need to get back to the center. Yeah. Of it's okay that you feel different. It's okay that you live different. We should all be able to live and get along. And as long as somebody's not hurting anyone else, it really should not be anybody else's business what they do. Right. And I think that gets to the spirit of what I was talking about, because a lot of legislation has been passed on the state and local level that's been that's contradicting the heart of what you just said. Totally. And, in the face of coming out of the COVID pandemic, we're still facing what many have referenced as the loneliness epidemic. And because people were isolated because of space and then politics. And the politics side has not waned at all whatsoever. No. There hasn't been anything to mitigate. And I think it's only been exacerbated, as time has gone on. And so, I don't know, other than what to echo what you just said, and, maybe let this be a call to action and just remind ourselves and, everybody tuning in that, like, we only, as humans, we were made to only be able to thrive in connection with other people, with each other. 100%. When we're disconnected, it's toxic for us. Yeah. Well, it's crazy, and I'm not going to say any names again, but there are people, celebrities that I'm friends with or deal with, and if I deal with them, then they're my friends, that have different political beliefs than me. And there's some people that I work with that some of my gay friends will be like, how can you be friends or go out and do their hair, whatever. And my thing is this: they've never been mean to me, and we have conversations, and I hear them, and I kind of understand where they're coming from, and they hear me. And if at some point I can change their mind a little and they can change my mind a little and we can meet in the middle, then so be it. But, that's the only way we're ever going to get to the center, is if we have conversations. And some of them are difficult conversations. But as long as it is a conversation, then we're at least moving to a direction to come to the center, in my mind. Yes. And, I just had this thought as you were saying that if we're not able to do that in real life, and like, just average people that aren't politicians, how can we expect
our politicians to be doing it.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Like if we're not doing it on in society, the politicians aren't going to be doing it either.
Well, and I'll tell you why nobody's doing it is because people don't have conversations anymore. Social media has taken over, which I think has been one of the biggest, and I hate to say this, and I'm on social media, everybody is.
Yep.
But it's been a really big setback in my opinion, because you have keyboard warriors now that will attack people online.
Yeah.
They would never say that to their face.
That's right.
And people will get in fights online and then completely not like somebody, and they've never even really had a conversation with them. And it's just like my mom saying one time, because and it was on a fan page, and somebody had posted a picture of me, and some lady had said, "Oh, he's gross," or "He's disgusting," or blah blah blah. My mom reads all that stuff, and she's like, "I'm just gonna get on here and I'm gonna cuss this lady out." And I'm like, "Mom, I don't care what Norma Jean in Kansas City thinks about me.
Right.
I just don't, because she doesn't know me.
Uh-huh.
You know, and what she thinks about me without knowing me says more about her than it says about me. And so there's so many people that hate people that they don't even know, and they never even have gotten the chance to know them. And the thing about it is, if you want to hate me and you've had a conversation with me, you've actually got to know me, then I'm fine with that. But to hate me with not ever even knowing me or having a conversation, again, that says more about them than it says about me. So nobody has conversations anymore.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep. That's
Really.
true. So true. Well, I know we're about out of time, and I want to kind of wrap up with some fun stuff. I usually have some rapid fire questions prepared, but I'm going to rapid fire them from
Your brain.
my brain.
Let's go.
What's your favorite celebrity you've ever worked on or worked with?
Oh my gosh. Wow. What's my favorite?
Or if you don't feel comfortable narrowing it down like that, maybe I could put it this way.
Say it.
In the last in recent history, what is like the one of your most interesting, fun experiences with a celebrity that you can remember? Okay.
Wow, that's kind of wild, and I need to think about it for a second. I mean, obviously, I love and adore the Chrisleys. I became friends with them. They're like my family. So, there's lots of instances I could give for that, but I think people already know that. So I'm trying to think of somebody else. And I can't. I'll tell you what celebrity that I've been asked to be around, and I actually could not do it because I was afraid of how it would react. And that was Dolly Parton.
I knew that was going to be your answer.
I'm obsessed with her. She's my favorite celebrity on the planet, hands down.
She's our next guest, by the way.
Don't lie. I will literally tear through this stained glass window behind me. No, Dolly Parton.
She's got an album to promote. We're on Music Row.
Rock and roll, hoochie coo. Let's go.
Yeah.
She is that person. If Dolly Parton ran for president, I would vote for her.
I think that
she would bring the whole world together.
If there's one person that could unite this country right now,
it's Dolly Parton. That's what I believe.
I believe so too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just off the top of your head, what is one of the best tools or changes that therapy gave you in your life that you still employ today?
I think the biggest tool that therapy gave me in my life that I still employ today is that I should not be so hard on myself, and that I should know that not only am I going through things, but sometimes when somebody does something, I try to think about why they're doing it, why they're saying it, and kind of analyze that rather than reacting to it. So you can't really control how people act, but you can control how you react.
That's right.
So that has been helpful for me in my life.
Beautiful. Lastly, this is a little bit deeper. I always like to close this with this question. So for that person that's kind of identified with your either kind of or wholeheartedly identified with your story, what last bit of encouragement would you like to leave with them that may be struggling in any part of the way?
I think what I would like to say to anybody who connects with my story that is still struggling is that it gets better and that this too shall pass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you're having a great day, this too shall pass. If you're having a crazy week, this too shall pass. Really just waiting time. Time is on your side if you'll just wait.
Well, that's a really good point to remember on both ends because, you know, how you just said it. I mean, you know, when you're having a great day, it's important to remember, like,
All your
seize
days
the
aren't gonna be
day.
great.
It's not, the other days aren't going to be
Right.
great.
And the bad days, guess what? They're going to be over soon. They can't last forever.
That's right. I love that.
It's like Dolly said, if you want to see the rainbow, you got to put up with the rain.
That's right. I'm going to take that though. I always, you know, as I talk to so many different people, I always talk about like little truth or hope nuggets. And then that's one that I just like, I love that. I've never heard anybody put it that way. And I'm going to take that away from this. So, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you could be here today and that we finally got to do this.
So awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in. I'm so glad that you all have joined us. Hope that you like, subscribe, and share this podcast. We hope to, bring healing and hope through all of our stories that we're elevating. And I want to close out by reminding each and every one of you that it is never too late to start loving yourself, and you're only ever one decision away from a completely different life.
This podcast is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health. If you or a loved one are struggling with trauma, addiction, or mental health, we are ready to answer your questions and help you take that next step. Call our admission center at 888-648-4098 or visit us online at www.promises.com. Our team is ready and waiting to answer the call for help.